So whose responsibility is it to accommodate for someone with disabilities? Is it yours? Is it theirs? Who owns that responsibility? Um, the Americans with Disabilities Act that was signed and put into law specifically mentions that businesses should make reasonable accommodations for those with disabilities. This includes your training and delivery, what that looks like, how you would approach it. This is why it's really, really important. So, what does that mean as far as your delivery, your training, what you do? Um, Typical responsibilities that a business has when delivering training is being able to accommodate within reason those who are blind, those who are deaf, and those who are neurodivergent. Right. So those autism, ADHD, dyslexia, so on and so forth. Those reasonable accommodations as far as training is concerned is for your delivery, you want to make sure that the environment is conducive to learning. You want to make sure that you have an interpreter when necessary. If the deaf person attending doesn't have an interpreter or doesn't have access to an interpreter, you would try to accommodate that as best as possible. Um, that accommodation may be, even if it makes sense, to have them log into a Zoom room where you have, um, you're broadcasting into that Zoom room, and then you have subtitles turned on so they can see subtitles and whatnot. And you can even put that up on the screen so everyone can see it, everyone can read the subtitles. That's okay too. As long as there is an accommodation of some sort for someone who is blind, they would generally have any kind of hardware that's accommodation hardware, like braille terminals or anything like that, if that's what they use. For a lot of modern software now and a lot of modern operating systems, they will have an accessibility option where it will repeat to the person where they're at and what they're doing and whatnot. Just be aware that this can potentially be confusing to those around them, so maybe have headphones available so they can reasonably use that as an accommodation. For those who are autistic, for those who have ADHD, for those who have other disabilities, just be aware that when you describe something, you need to be as professional as possible. Using slang or using idioms can be very confusing to someone with autism. For someone with ADHD, you want to make sure that you keep things paced appropriately so that they're able to absorb information without getting overwhelmed or without getting overly bored and wanting to move on to the next thing. Um, these are some of the things that you can do as an organization to accommodate those with disabilities, right? Now, there are lots of things that a person with a disability may be able to provide themselves to make things easier that go beyond what is reasonable for an organization. For instance, organizations may not have, and generally do not have, braille terminals, right? They're very expensive. They're not something that's generally kept on, you know, on staff, particularly for temporary use, because they're expensive and they're generally customized to the person that's using them. So that's something that a blind person, would generally have in order to accommodate. They may have difficulties uh, getting around and whatnot, and so they will bring in a service animal, and that service animal is a reasonable accommodation that they can provide. And you, as an organization, need to be willing to accept that service animal under the guidelines of the ADA, meaning that the animal is under control, the animal is providing a service to that person, and that person takes responsibility for that animal and its actions while it's there. The trust is that it's been well trained and it's doing what it needs to do as a service animal. Now, if you have other animals on your campus that are not service animals, that can interfere with that person's service animal's performance of its duties. Therefore, you need to make sure that they are not in that general region. So just let everyone know, hey, if you're bringing your dog in from work, or if for whatever reason you have an office that allows cats. I've never been in one that allowed cats. I think that'd be cool. But if you have an organization that allows cats, just be aware that if someone brings in a service dog, that service dog should be trained well enough not to chase cats, but it's probably best not to have the cat in that general area hissing and doing what cats do when they see a dog. Those are reasonable accommodations that an organization can make for someone that has a disability. Now, there are probably lots more. I'm not an HR I'm not an HR expert by far, so I defer to those who are in HR and know the regulations and rules and what your company specifically is willing to accommodate and not accommodate. But you have to remember that if you are delivering customer-facing training, you are providing a service and you're providing product to your customer. Whether you charge for it or not, you're providing service and product to your customer. And they need to be able to process that and utilize that and gain the benefits of that for however they're paying for it, whether they're paying for it directly because you charge for the class, or it's paid for indirectly through utilizing your product and you're therefore teaching them, and you're therefore teaching them how to use it properly for free. I mean, that's still the cost, quote unquote, of the training comes from buying the product, right? Because that pays for the cost center that is training it in that scenario. So the long and the short of it is, do what you can. Be aware that a lot of folks with disabilities will have accommodations and will have requirements or requests. Work through what you believe is going to be reasonable and follow the law. Now, if you're doing online trainings on demand, this one is probably a lot easier because the web generally provides a lot of guidelines. The biggest thing that I see, and I will even admit that my own website kind of struggles with this, is having alternate text for images, right? This is something that probably is generally not done. Most software and most operating systems will do screen reading as part of their accessibility. So that's generally not a problem. But when it gets to the image, you can't really describe what's in the image. You need to have an alt text. So that way the screen reader can say, this is an image of whatever it is. That's probably the biggest thing you need. And then make sure that you can easily navigate through your website. Most modern websites and most modern templating systems can do this without a problem. And they're designed with 508 compliance, that is to say, the Americans with Disabilities Act compliance in mind, right? They want to make sure this is really easy for you. So it can be. So really the most common thing that is at risk is, not having alt text for your images. Make sure you do that. You're generally set, right? All right. So hopefully this information was really handy for you. If you have any questions or any concerns, please let me know in the comments below. I would like to answer them. And if you are an HR expert, I would like to hear your ideas and your recommendations. Help us all. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. If you like what you're seeing, hit like and subscribe and enjoy your learning journey.